This is a short clip. I call it Not So Simple. And here's why. You're going to read about some traits in your book that are simple dominants, and that is awesome, okay? I'm going to tell you two important things, maybe more, but just two, okay? Simple dominance is that which occurs when the dominant trait masks the recessive trait in the heterozygous state, okay? That's pretty quick. Now, the other thing we're going to see is that there are other ways in which genes interact. This is the simplest one, that's why we call it simple dominance. Sometimes, and you won't be tested over these, but genes interact in what is called codominant. And that means that in the heterozygous state, a third phenotype is formed. An example for this is considered that if you could have a red rose and you crossed it with a white rose, that you could get a purple rose if there was a heterozygote between them, okay? So the heterozygote state might be purple. That is a third state. There's another one that is incomplete dominance. And incomplete dominance occurs when the heterozygous state is intermediary between the other two states. And the example for this is if you cross two flowers, a red flower and a homozygous dominant red flower and a recessive white flower, and you cross them and you would get a pink flower, which is intermediate. Okay? There are myriads of other ways in which genes can interact. And so when you read your textbook about simple dominance, you'll read something like tongue rolling, okay? Even my lecture's there. I'm going to do it. Here we go. Okay, the ability to roll your tongue like that is apparently dominant, all right? There's a two-allele system where the dominant allele causes the tongue rolling. And that means if you can't roll your tongue, so you try to roll it and you do this, that would mean that you are probably homozygous recessive for the tongue rolling characteristic. Now this can cause all kinds of problems, but it turns out that there are problems because if you go home and you look at your parents and you think, hey, my parents make it look like they can't be my parents, right? So if you have two parents who cannot roll their tongue and a child who can roll their tongue, then suddenly it looks like maybe you're adopted. Not necessarily so. And the reason for that is that there are apparently windows in development when the learning of the tongue rolling can be done. And this is just like fascinating trivia for you guys because like between the ages of 4 and 6, if you teach a child to roll their tongue, they develop this muscle. The muscle then becomes present and develops there, and they can do this. And then for the rest of their life they can. Now, in some cases, if you don't learn it during that window, the developmental window for making the tongue muscle at that point passes. So let's try to keep in mind that we have in our text and in my lectures a lot of examples of characteristics that are inherited most of the time, 99% of the time, as if they were simple dominants. And we do all of our exercises that way. That's where we can begin. But some of them do have exceptions. And they are exceptions in the ways in which the genes interact are not always quite so simple, and there can be modifiers during different times of development in life. So let's keep that in mind, and don't panic if you can't roll your tongue, or you can roll your tongue and you don't think you should be able to, all right? So there you go.